Good evening. My name is Catherine Grace Bihisala, and I'm gonna be discussing the Part 3 Ethics on Relevant Human Issues, Chapter 9 Environmental Ethics.
What is environmental ethics? It is the discipline in philosophy that studies the moral relationships of human beings to, and also the value and moral status of, the environment and its non human contents. The definition of environmental ethics rests on the principle that there is an ethical relationship between human beings and the natural environment. Human beings are a part of the environment, and so are the other living beings. When we talk about the philosophical principle that guides our life, we often ignore the fact that even plants and animals are a part of our lives. They are an integral part of the environment and hence cannot be denied the right to live. Since they are an inseparable part of nature and closely associated with our living, the guiding principles of our life and our ethical values should include them. They need to be considered as entities with the right to coexist with human beings. The concept of environmental ethics brings out the fact that all the life forms on Earth have the right to live. By destroying nature, we are denying the life forms this right. This act is unjust and unethical. The food web clearly indicates that human beings, plants, animals, and other natural resources are closely linked with each other. All of us are creations of nature, and we depend on one another and the environment. Respecting the existence of not just other humans but also the non human entities and recognizing their right to live is our primary duty. With environmental ethics, morality extends to the non human world. The field of ethics or moral philosophy involves systemizing, defending, and recommending concepts of right and wrong. Environmental ethics as a field started to develop in 1960s and 1970s. This was because of an increasing awareness of industrial growth, economic growth, and population growth, and the effects it's had on the environment. When environmental ethics emerged as a new philosophy, it challenged traditional views. Scientists like Rachel Carson and environmentalists who led philosophers to consider the philosophical aspect of environmental problems pioneered in the development of environmental ethics as a branch of environmental philosophy. Today, environmental ethics is a widely discussed topic. It covers aspects such as ethical principles that guide our use of natural resources. Environmental ethics issues are numerous. It deals with issues related to the rights of individuals that are fundamental to life and well-being, resource consumption patterns, and the need for equitable utilization. It deals how we utilize and distribute resources. We are cutting down forests for making our homes. Our excessive consumption of natural resources continues. The undue use of resources is resulting in their depletion, risking the life of our future generation, which is an unethical behavior. Destruction of forest or the deforestation is the intentional clearing of forested land, wherein humans harm the plant and animal life in those regions. Slash and burn techniques are used for clearing land that leads to the destruction of forest and woodland. Environmental pollution is defined as the contamination of the physical and biological components of the earth and atmosphere system to such an extent that normal environmental processes are adversely affected. Such activities in the industries have been polluting our environment caused by transportation mainly be attributed to fossil fuels. Animals are killed due to the natural cause includes death attributed to disease, malnutrition, flooding, fire, birthing issues, and chronic illness. However, the animal agriculture industry is the leading cause of most environmental degradation that is currently occurring. These detrimental effects happen due to overgrazing, habitat loss, overfishing, and more. We are currently in the next mass extinction and animal agriculture is only fueling this catastrophe. Two factors that play into contrasting beliefs of environmental ethics are instrumental value and intrinsic value. Instrumental value is an important point that the field of environmental ethics is concerned with, is whether non-human beings only have an instrumental value or whether they also have an intrinsic value. Instrumental values is the value that something has as a means to a desired or valued end. It is always derivative on the value of something else and it is always conditional. A good example of a good example of something that would have intrinsic value is money. Money is physically just a piece of paper. When you add instrumental value to it, it becomes a major social and economic tool. Intrinsic value is the value that an entity has in itself for what it is or as an end. When you think of intrinsic value, think of sentimental value it brings like friendship or love. Many people value species and ecosystems intrinsically for their complexity, diversity, spirituality, significance, wildness, beauty, or wondrousness. There are three main types of ethics we see today are anthropocentrism, biocentrism, and ecocentrism. Anthropocentrism is the view that only human interest needs to be taken into account, while biocentrism is the ethical perspective that all life deserves equal more consideration and has equal more standing. And the third is the understanding that ecological groups such as ecosystems, habitats, species, and population are all parts of environmental concern.
As the quote says, when we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. The land ethic essay is a moral responsibility to the natural world. It is about strengthening the relationships between the people and the land. A land ethic expands the definition of community to include not only humans but all of the other parts of the earth as well soils, waters, plants, and animals, or what he called the land. Theologian and environmental philosopher Holmes Rollston III viewed the loss of species spells disrespect to nature's process of speciation. According to him, biological processes deserve respect.
Recent philosophers point out that all living entities, including trees and plants, have rights to the protection of their interests, and we have an obligation to take this interest into account in our moral deliberation. Thus, we may oppose immoral activities such as logging that threaten the plants and trees. However, plants don't possess a brain. They just exist and grow and wait to be eaten by herbivores and omnivores. The validity of plant rights would pose contradiction to human morality, as plants cannot be removed from the human diet. A lot of nutrients contained in plants that humans cannot make themselves. Our moral responsibility to preserve nature for future generations, we need to be mindful with the balance. Our approach towards the environment and other species should be based on our strong ethical values. Even if the human race is considered as the main constituent of the environment, animals and plants are in no way less important. They have a right to get a fair share of resources and lead a safe life. In some religions, certain plants or animals are worshipped, considering them as sacred or symbols of a particular deity. Radical ecology is the view that environmental problems can only be solved by radical revision of attitudes and values rather than through economic and political reform. An example of deep ecology are the national parks where animals are conserved, animal orphanages, and conservatories for the conservation of the endangered species are examples of deep ecology at work. 5 reasons why man despoils the environment. First, they desire for progress. Urbanizations often results in deforestation, habitat loss, and the extraction of fresh water from the environment, which can decrease biodiversity and alter species ranges and interaction. Second is greed. Excessive consumption of human beings leads to an ecosystem disturbance of the natural balance. Third is the poverty. Impacts of poverty depleting the natural resources. They tend to rely directly on their environment for survival. They lack the access to protect the environment. And overcrowded urban areas increase the risk of diseases. The fourth is the lack of self-discipline. Plastic waste is visibly anywhere. This is due to the fact that many people lack of discipline. The fifth one is the lack of concern for others. The saddest thing is instead of thanking nature, we punish it by pollution, destruction, or non-regeneration of its essential components like trees and the soil and minerals. Our world is facing numerous challenges, including climate change, loss of biodiversity, and environmental degradation. By adopting ethical practices that prioritizes sustainability and the protection of natural resources, we can help mitigate the worst effects of these crises. The ethical preservation of nature is not just a moral obligation, but a practical necessity for the well-being of people and the planet.